Okay, we're live.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority's Board of Directors meeting for August. I hope everyone's been enjoying their summer thus far, and you definitely see the days are getting a little shorter out there, a little bit longer to warm up in the morning, and lots of dew on the ground, but summer's not quite over yet, so hope people have a good chance to enjoy what's remaining of the summer. So just a reminder that Emily Chandler is our co-host today, or our host. If you have any issues, get a hold of Emily on the chat feature. I'd like to remind everyone to please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Have your participant and chat windows open. Try to use the raised hand feature. And if that doesn't work, just shout out and I will hopefully not miss anyone. Just a reminder that again, we'll be having today's meeting is be recorded and live streamed on the YouTube channel. And this is part of our requirement to allow public viewing of the proceedings. We do have regrets this morning from Jim Raffle, Nancy Manning. I believe Margaret is going to be at our meeting, but I don't see Margaret yet. So we'll see if she's able to join us or not. And I know that Tony has had some unexpected items he has to deal with. So Tony will be with us, but he has to leave probably by about 10:30. So we'll get underway and get started here. So with that, we also have Michelle, who is not with us today. So Teresa Hollingsworth will be filling her role. So I'm going to ask Teresa to do the roll call for attendance, please.
Thank you, Ellen. Marie Blanche.
I am present.
Alan Dale.
Present.
Anna Hopkins.
Here.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
And Margaret Lupton, I'll just ask in case. Okay. Hugh McDermott.
Present.
Paul Mitchell.
Present.
Anna Marie Murray.
Present.
Brian Petrie.
Present.
Joe Salter.
Here.
Mark Schadenberg. Mark Schadenberg. Okay. And Alex Westman.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll proceed with the meeting, and hopefully if a couple of the other ones can join us, they will. So next we have our territorial acknowledgement. We will begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawawandan, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Luna-Piuk peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Delaware Nation at Moraviantown. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island. Next, we go to modifications to the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add or modify to the agenda? I'm not seeing or hearing anything. Any declarations of pecuniary interest for any of the board members this morning? If not, we have no presentations or delegations for today's meeting. That takes us down to item number 5. Administrative business, item 5.1 is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. That was on June the 28th. If I could get Anna Marie to move that, please, and Brian to second it.
I so move.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. And the minutes and the closed session minutes were all circulated to the board members. Any comments or questions or errors or omissions from those minutes? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so if there's no questions or comments, I'll call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
and Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Next, we have no business today arising from those minutes, I believe. So there's no correspondence. Takes us down to item number 6, which is reports for consideration. First one there is 6.1. This one comes as a result of a notice of motion that was given at our last meeting. And it was moved by Tony and seconded by Paul Mitchell to suspend the vaccine mandate for staff and new hires effective immediately. And so we've got a staff report on this here. Just before we get into this, I just want to confirm with Tony and Paul that you're comfortable with that wording that captures your motion.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And so am I.
Okay, you're good. Thanks. We just wanted to make sure we got that covered. So as I mentioned, there is a staff report here. We got some input from our joint health and safety committee. Our solicitor Grant Inglis also was involved, and Tracy was able to get some information from other conservation authorities. So Tracy, I'll turn it over to you for some comments.
Sure, thank you, Chair. Just to highlight that when we're considering our vaccination policies, we have to consider the size of our organization as well as our physical space and our employees ultimately, and their families by extension, given the transmission rates that we've seen. In some offices, I understand that have less than 20 staff and have enclosed spaces, the decision has been made to look at risk within their areas and suspend those policies. We're a little bit different where we are, given our size and given our open concept office and the spaces that we share when we're together. And we've also looked at what that risk looks like for us. Given that, and given that we've had very, very, very limited impacts on recruitment with this matter, given the literal hundreds of interviews undertaken by our HR for fulfilling part positions, we've only had one request for an exemption. And that was through the interview stage, and they were not close to the successful candidate. They were ranked very low. So with that, we feel that at this time, it's just a little bit premature, but we're going to continue to monitor what's happening with our municipalities, with other organizations and CAs of our size, and then determine when time is appropriate to revoke those policies. Certainly Jennifer Howley, she's here as our health and safety specialist. This report was based on input gathered from her, as well as our health and safety committee, and also from Grant. So Grant may want to speak to some of the risk framework from discussing with his colleagues as well, and where we're at right now in the pandemic, knowing that this fall is an uncertain time. I think since even writing this report, Mr. Summers, Alex Summers from Middlesex London Public Health, talked and spoke about the anticipation of cases rising through the fall as individuals go indoors, much like we've seen in the past. So with that, Jennifer, do you have anything to add at this time?
Okay, Tracy, I think you covered it. I apologize. I'm just following the chat along the side there. So that was just a little, caught me off guard. So, but no, I don't have anything to add to that. I think the report is self-explanatory.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, just in case anybody's looking at the chat here, Hugh is leaving the meeting right now. It seems that there has been a plane that has crashed in field out on his farm. So he is going to go and deal with that issue. Hopefully everyone's okay there. So we have Tracy and Jennifer available for questions and comments. Grant, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
I don't, Mr. Chair. I just, I have talked to, as Tracy noted, I've talked to some other practitioners about this concept, and they are all everybody is striving to achieve some kind of normalcy. And I think the feeling in many organizations is that it's not quite there yet. So as I said, and as Tracy has reported, many organizations are putting this decision off till kind of the new year to see whether a level of normalcy is achieved. At the moment, you have 100% compliance with all of your staff. It is difficult to suspend a policy and then bring it back into compliance. In the event that you've hired somebody who is not compliant, you end up with kind of employment issues. And so many of these organizations are just saying, we think it's premature. It's got nothing to do with legalities at the moment. You know, that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Grant. Any questions or comments then from board members? Paul, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have 3 questions. The first one is, the policy states that it requires, quote, requires employees to be fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus and to complete any subsequent doses, unquote. So as the Upper Thames required employees to get the first and second boosters as a condition to continue their employment.
Okay, Jennifer, do you want to tackle that, or?
Yeah, no, we haven't required the boosters.
Okay, my second question, does the Upper Thames require employees to have the usual vaccinations for polio, mumps, etc., that most of us have as a condition of employment?
No, we don't require those at all.
And my third question is, does the Upper Thames require employees to get an annual flu shot?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Tony.
Yeah, thank you. So I was looking at the chart that was provided as a link within the context of the document there. I noticed that the chart refers to an uptick in July as the reason for considering keeping the interim policy in place. But charts are very useful if you use the data collectively and look at the complete information. So I'm used to statistics and charts, and when I look at the trend line, there's clearly a trend down to 0, or not, heading in that direction. So we see in the chart for this wastewater testing regime that the last data is showing an uptick. However, the ramp upward is quite gradual compared to previous spikes that we've seen. But if you do a trend line on the data in total, it's coming down significantly. And I just wondered if we just were taking a single point in time for our evaluation internally, or whether we're looking at the trend in general. I guess today when a patient tests positive, for example, the response from the medical professionals now, and I was told this directly, is to treat it like a cold. So I guess what the physician said to me was that what was a tiger 2 years ago is a pussycat today. So it's quite a bit different because of changes. And that what we do know is that the vaccines to date have proven not to be effective in preventing infection or preventing illness or preventing spread. Yes, vaccines have lessened the severity of illness. That's anecdotal because they don't have a standard to compare to. But anyway, let's assume that it is effective at lessening the severity of the illness, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying that there isn't benefit to it or anything like that. But do we have any evidence that the vaccine policy has prevented workplace transmission or exposure at UTRCA? Because we've had other protocols that have existed concurrently during the past few months. And our people, by the nature of their work, do have pretty ideal working conditions to minimize exposure. Our people are reasonable and make responsible choices for themselves and their families too. And I credit them for that. The evidence suggests most exposures are occurring. Geez, I'm sorry. This is that's a physician calling me here. So anyway, I'll take that in a minute. Evidence suggests that most exposures are happening in the social settings and home settings, I guess, and at least in our workplace, we follow social guidelines, and people are obviously very cognizant of the protocols necessary to minimize exposure. Whereas I'm not 100% convinced that the vaccine policy has made that big of a difference given the other protocols in place. Also had a chance to be involved with an inspector for the Ministry of Labor at our plant in Elmira. And we had a discussion about policies. And his comment was, if those companies who do not enforce vaccine mandates were breaking some law or failing to provide a safe and healthy workplace, there would have been charges laid under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So having good protocols, hygiene, social distancing, and stuff like that, in their minds, seems to be an appropriate mechanism for ensuring safety. Vaccine mandates, it appears that they didn't really want to get into, I guess. So anyway, for all these various reasons, I guess I felt the interim policy as it existed today should end, or at least be reviewed, and let our staff and employees make their own personal choices for themselves and their families, as I feel they're pretty responsible individuals. And with that, I think Paul asked some great questions too that we need to consider. You know, sometimes I look at comparables and how we always, look at other conservation authorities on how we pay wages and how we operate and function. And sometimes I ask myself, why do we need all these different conservation authorities and administrations? Maybe we should be just one big unit with branches, because we seem to be very consistent across the board. There are those exceptions, but I think we need to look at it on a case by case and how it suits us individually as an organization. I wasn't convinced that the vaccine mandate in itself was superior to all the other protocols we have in place. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I guess the vaccine policy is just one more tool in our toolkit and one more layer of protection. Jen, do you want to add anything at all to that? No, not at this time. Okay. Got a bunch more folks here. So Joe, you're next.
Yes, it's obvious there was an uptick in cases in July. You just can't deny it. Just because it's not talked about doesn't mean it's not there. I've had more people I know get COVID in July, 3 actually in workplaces. it's not the time yet. September's coming. We're moving inside. I think it's the staff policy or the staff recommendation is the responsible way to go. We'll review it again in the fall. Like, this policy will not be here forever, hopefully. But just because it's not talked about doesn't mean it's not there. I'm supporting the staff recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Next we go to Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Yeah, I'm with Joe. I'm not an immunologist. I can't even say it, let alone be it. But so I'm going to follow public health advice. This was a tool that they brought out to make sure that the fight against COVID-19 was successful. Again, if we're willing to do all the other protocols because they work, then I strongly believe that the vaccine has played a major part in our success so far. And again, the COVID-19 has not gone away. The news cycle has moved on, but there's more COVID cases now. I just saw a report the other day, actually, because saying that in BC, there was more deaths this year than all the other years combined, and it's August. So it's still with us. It's a tool against it. And I'm willing to risk offending some people and liberties over that if it keeps everybody else safe, because that's what we do in a society, is keep everybody safe together.
Okay, thank you. Alex.
I'll try to stay objective in this, but I am fully supportive of staff's recommendation to continue the vaccine mandate. I have personally seen it at the ground level when there is a massive outbreak in a vulnerable sector. And it's not just about our employees, it's about their extended families and the community at large. If we can do our small part to help keep this virus in check, yes, the vaccines do work. They do show a much lower morbidity rate than those who are not vaccinated. So that's an undeniable fact. And I saw it firsthand myself in a long-term care home where of the 67 residents, all of them got it. There was some deaths, unfortunately, but the vaccine did its job. And I think that we need to consider that when our public health experts are recommending that we continue the vaccine mandate, we as individuals, without that kind of training, without that kind of knowledge and experience within the field, we can't be making a decision contrary to what they're saying, because they are the experts. They're the ones that know best. And I'm not an immunologist either, but I certainly don't want to be attending a funeral of one of our staff members or hearing about one of their family members dying of this virus because we didn't do something. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Appreciate you sharing your viewpoints with us. Thank you. Paul, back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and it appears that this motion that Tony and I brought forward is going to fail. But I do think as a seconder, I have a responsibility to explain why I supported Tony's motion. So I supported the Upper Thames interim COVID-19 vaccination policy for the same reason that I supported Zora Township's interim policy, and the same reason that I got vaccinated, because I believed at the time that if we got to 85 to 90% of the population vaccinated, that the government would lift them and reduce or eliminate the collateral damage that those restrictions were doing. At the time, the general population was stuck at about 80% vaccinated eligible people. And 10% of the people were anti-COVID vaccine, and they weren't going to get vaccinated no matter what. So the problem was, well, how do you convince the other 10% to get from the 80 to 90%? And what we did, and what many other employers did, was make being vaccinated with those first 2 doses a condition of employment. And by January 1st, it was very close to 90% of the people that were eligible were vaccinated. And the high risk people of over 75 or 70 years old were at 95 to 98% vaccinated. But in spite of that, we still had lockdowns, school closings, mandatory masking. And on top of that, the requirement to show your vaccination passport to basically go anywhere or do anything. So my goal in supporting this policy was a complete failure. The goal of the policy was largely a failure too, because it said in the purpose line was to minimize employees' risk of infection and to reduce the risk of transmission to others. And essentially the vaccines didn't work as far as keeping people from getting the disease and spreading the disease. I think we all know dozens of people who have been double and triple vaccinated, who have been tested positive for COVID. There is some evidence has been noted that it does reduce the severity of the disease and lessens the requirement for medical treatment. But I think that data is kind of hard to quantify for three reasons. First of all, the symptoms of the Omicron variant were much less than earlier versions of COVID. The disease was so widespread that the testing system broke down. So the data collected as to how many were testing positive as compared to how many were being treated became irrelevant. And hospitals at some point started differentiating between people that were being admitted or treated because they had COVID, as opposed to the people that were admitted and treated with COVID. We adopted this interim policy at a time when most of us were afraid of the new COVID variants that were supposedly coming in from all around the world. We were fed up with restrictions on our lives, and we believed that 90% vaccination rate would protect us from both. 10 months later, the policy, I believe, is redundant because the restrictions have mostly been lifted in most situations. The original shots don't prevent infection or transmission, and I believe that's why health units are recommending multiple booster shots. Tracy said it hasn't had impact of employment, but we did shut ourselves out at least 10% of the work pool. People aren't going to apply if they're not vaccinated or willing to get vaccinated. And this is at a time when we're having a very difficult time filling all empty positions. There's a bit of hypocrisy in this policy in that we aren't fully enforcing it and requiring our staff to get the booster shots. And I don't understand why we're requiring people to get COVID shots when there's question about how effective they are, when we don't require people to have all the other types of vaccines that have been around for decades and have proven very effective. Comes down to, I believe that Upper Thames staff are intelligent enough and educated enough that they can determine their skill level, or they can determine their level of risk and how best to deal with it. And they certainly have the option to vaccinate, and I support people that want to be vaccinated for whatever reason. But I think since we passed this policy, that things have changed. And if we're not going to fully implement it, then we should, at the very least, suspend it.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And we've got one last speaker, I see. So Marie, you get the last word, and then I'm going to call for the vote.
Trouble unmuting myself. Actually, yeah, I appreciate the discussion. It's certainly an important issue, but actually I just had a couple of questions, if I could, through you. One was the issue that was raised about not requiring the boosters. I'm wondering what the rationale for that is. And also I'm wondering what the timeline is for reviewing this. Like when would it be reviewed and how often would it be scheduled to be reviewed?
Okay, Jen, can you answer that for us, please?
Yeah, so with respect to the review, at each of our joint health and safety committee meetings, COVID obviously is something that is discussed. So obviously the committee reviews it, at least 4 times a year when we meet. With respect to the boosters, we haven't had much discussion on the requirement for boosters, and maybe Tracy, I don't know if you have anything add to that?
Sure, through the chair. When it comes to boosters, it's the direction from the medical officer of health that one booster is required for the majority of the age group that would be employable at the upper temps. So certainly there's additional boosters suggested for those who are a vulnerable population or of higher age groups. And of course, you know, the younger populations that I guess we're against child labor laws if we were to employ them, then they don't fit into our criteria. However, given the complexity about that, given the guidance from the province has been evolving as well. Those are relatively new requirements, so they had not been adopted into updated policy as yet.
Okay, thank you. Margaret, do you have your hand up here?
Yes, I do. And I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be a little late joining this. As some of you may have heard, I am recovering from some surgery. And I'm very restricted. I've been at home, but I'm very restricted. And so in the last few days, I've taken a notion that I should be looking at going into some respite care in a nursing home. It's just really for the month that I'm tethered to whatever I am doing here, just as a relief to my family. They yesterday spent quite a bit of time on the phone calling nursing homes in the Stratford area. And the majority of the answers that came back were, and much to my surprise, they are not taking in new residents or customers because they are going back to some increased COVID restrictions. So that's maybe a little bit of an update, and I have no idea why this has happened, but that was what we heard yesterday. So there must be some more concerns that are arising right now about the COVID concern.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. And I hope you continue to progress after your surgery. You're looking good, so hopefully, hopefully you continue to on the road to recovery. So
well, I've had, if I tell you, I've had a shoulder replacement, and I'm supposed to have another one, but I'm beginning to feel it will not happen in my lifetime. It's too grim a process.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, well, let's say, hope you're continuing to feel better. So, okay, well, I think we've had lots of good discussion on this issue. Certainly lots of information out there. So with that, I'm going to call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Okay, Marie Blanche.
Sorry, Alan, can we have the motion read again so we know which way we're voting on this?
Okay, it's moved by Tony and seconded by Paul.
Hello?
To suspend the vaccine mandate for staff and new hires effective immediately. And the motion is up there now on, should be on the shared screen. So.
Okay,
that,
Marie.
go
Marie
ahead,
Blanche.
Teresa.
Sure. Marie Blanche.
No.
Alan Dale.
No.
Anna Hopkins.
No.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
No.
Margaret Lupton.
No.
I'm going to leave Hugh. Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
No.
Brian Petrie.
No.
Joe Salter.
No.
Mark Schadenberg, which I don't think, I just want to make sure he's not here. And Alex Westman.
No.
Okay, so the motion is defeated. But thank you everyone for your input and some good discussion, and we will we'll be reviewing this as we go forward. Of course, lots of changes happening still out there. So, but for now, the motion is defeated. That takes us to our next report, 6.2, and that is the 2022 mid-year financial report and budget revisions. And motion here that the board of directors approve the recommendation as presented in the report Could I get Brian to move that, please, and Joe to second it?
Yeah, so moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Just a few comments then. We've done this before. It's just a mid-year update. Christine is with us and the managers to answer any questions. And just a reminder, we went through this last year. This is not a weighted vote. We are not dealing with the levy amount, or it's not a vote that's dealing with the non-matching levy. And so under the regulations of the, it's actually Ontario Regulation 139-96. This is just a regular vote. So Tracy, I'll go to you first for some comments.
Sure, my earphone's just popping out. Thanks for that reminder and sharing, and apologies for missing the one attachment that was sent around that included the capital budget page. One page got missed, but you all have it now. And I know a question will often come up regarding the Section 29 transfer payment. It was noted that $181,213 from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has not yet been received, and we're into August. Last year, we had actually received a letter confirming that that amount would be coming on June 10th. So it is a little bit later, so that's why it was mentioned in the report. Not certain, I would imagine it's because the election is, and the election process earlier in the summer there, that may have delayed things, but we really haven't had any insight from the ministry to know if it is coming or not. I always try to remain hopeful, and I'm thinking that we still are expecting some updates to Section 28 regulations that would be from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and perhaps they're waiting to make an announcement at the same time as those regulations are released. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but that's where I'm thinking something might be just being delayed because of the election too. Certainly all the managers are here. If you have any specific questions, I think it was a while back that Brian Petrie had suggested the notes in the margins to help identify where there's some anomalies, and notes have been provided, and I find it tremendously helpful too, so I hope the board does as well. Certainly if there's, like I say, any of those questions, we've got many other managers here today that may be able to offer some clarification if you have them.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. And yes, that was sent out. The one sheet on the capital expenditures was missing, and that was sent out yesterday. So apologies to the board members for that, but hopefully everyone had a chance to review it. So open up for comments and questions, and Sandy, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess it looks like we're pretty much on track for this current year. And just wondering briefly if staff can speak to being on track for the preliminary 2023 budget coming forward at its usual time.
Okay, Christine?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. We are, with respect to the 2023 budget, we are furiously working to get the new Questica software implemented. And when that is ready, the managers and senior staff will be trained in how to put the budget figures in. At this point, I don't expect we will have it in October, a draft for 2023, but we are trying very hard to get it ready for November. If it appears that the Questica tool will not be implemented quickly enough, we will resort to our old budgeting method and make sure that you have a draft for November. That's the best I can tell you today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Paul.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a line item there that says purchase of AV equipment for the hybrid meeting rooms, $35,000. So what's the situation as a possibility of returning to in-person board meetings in the near future?
Tracy and I have been talking about this. So Tracy, I'll let you go ahead at this point and update the board members.
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, we're anxious to see people, and we're happy to have Paul in our meeting space last week for the Turtle Day. But with hybrid meetings, one of the challenges for board meetings is to have the right audio equipment for the speaker system and for everyone's voices to be picked up. Even this afternoon, we've got a gentleman coming in to meet with Emily, who is looking at our setup to confirm we're getting the right equipment in the right spaces. Much of that type of equipment, as you can imagine, there's been a demand because of meeting rooms needing to accommodate for hybrid, but also we are dealing with supply chain issues because of the chips that are needed for some of those components. So we are phasing in to make sure we can get our meeting rooms up and running. I'm hopeful that some of the equipment will be installed in September to allow that, but again, staff are going to need some training and some dry runs before we start inviting it in for the full board meetings to be able to accommodate that. You'll see later in our report as well, with Teresa's report on our activities coming up this fall. There'll be lots of opportunities for our members to participate and come out to those events in your areas too. So that's the timeline. Fingers crossed that we can get the equipment that we need so that later this fall we'll be able to have some hybrid meetings.
Thanks for the response, Tracy. And it was great to be back in the building last week to see the turtles and snakes and all the people and talk to you face to face. And I understand the problems with supply issues at Zor Township. We've been running hybrid meetings for a long time, but we were fortunate that we had most of the equipment purchased before the supply issues came in. But personally, I'm getting pretty sick of Zoom meetings, and sooner we can get back face to face or some type of a hybrid, the better. So thanks for the update.
Yep, thank you, Paul. And yes, we are waiting on that. Things are back ordered. As you can see, the audio equipment, some vehicles. There's a number of things that we'd like to have, but you just have to continue to be patient. Brian, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll add to that. Ingersoll, we're waiting to get back into our council chambers just for that reason as well. The council chambers have been renovated for various reasons, but that hybrid equipment just will not show up. So you're not alone. It's very popular right now. It would have been a good idea to start a company on that. My question revolves around the, let me get to the right screen. Oh. 2 seconds, turns out I'm inept. It revolves around the user fees and other revenues, and the line specifically landowner tree sales cost recovery. That's been dropped quite a bit from the original budget. It's down 29% from what was perceived to be, although the sales right now are up. But is there an explanation as to why was the program just not taken up this year, or was it due to other things such as supply chain issues with that? Because that's one of our goals, is to get more trees and stuff out there.
I know it was a tough year getting them planted. I don't know about the orders and the sales we had beforehand. I'm not sure if we have, who do we have to answer that today? Tracy, or?
If not, no, it's a question that can be answered later. It's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, Brad is away on vacation this week. That's his department. But yeah, I think just generally they saw fewer sales. One of the challenges with some of the tree species is that the price of ag land too. So not as much marginal land for retirement that we may have typically seen in the past. So that's just more of a general comment, and seeing some of those prices and the ability to get out and do the work reduced because there's just not the same places to plant them when the crop prices are so high and wanting that land to be cropped.
Yeah, and that's too bad. So I think saying that, I think our municipalities have a role to play where we can really step up with our land and look at what we can do to subsidize that, because the market is going to dictate what the land is used for. Of course, we want to save woodlots and stuff like that and have trees planted, but if our goals are going to be met, I know they're changing all the time with the different regulations, but our regular strategic plan goals of planting those trees, we're going to have to be creative in partnerships and get them out in different ways to meet those goals. And so municipalities can certainly step up and do their part, because we're a part of the Conservation Authority as well. So.
Yeah. If I can add through the chair, one of the projects that Brad will be reporting on, he was just finalizing some of the agreements, is more about wetland restoration and wetland enhancement activity. So again, it's not tree sales, so you're not going to see that in the line, but it is that work on the ground that helps achieve our environmental targets. So just shifting gears a little bit instead.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. So just before I call,
it's Teresa here. Oh, sorry, Alan. Yep. I'm going to throw just a comment in, in terms of the trees. I do remember that in the spring when we had tree orders in and waiting for tree deliveries, our suppliers were really having trouble finding people to help pull trees. It was a real challenge. You kind of have to take your mind back to that time. But it was it was tough for them just to find any kind of help. So it kind of started very early in terms of the supply issues too. So that just came to mind. Sorry to jump in there.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I know there was a few late snowstorms and that, and it was tough weather getting the trees out and then getting them planted, but certainly it was a challenge, but we did the best we could and our suppliers did the best they could. So thank you for that. Just before I call for the vote though, I'd like to thank Christine and her staff, because it's always a challenge and it seems like it's getting more difficult. We're still waiting for our provincial funding. That hasn't come through yet. There's some uncertainty here. We've got some capital issues, like we mentioned, the vehicles that we don't know if they're going to be delivered this year or not. So there's lots of unknowns, but it looks like we're going to be pretty close to what we projected at the beginning of the year. So I appreciate that. And also the fact that the new Questica software is coming in, and once staff get up and running on that, it is going to make it much easier for them to get their budgets together and work with Christine. So we're looking forward to that. Brian, I see your hand there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was one thing I was going to mention as well. We got to remember that the province doesn't have a budget yet. So imagine a lot of these things, they're not sending out money because they can't. So hopefully they get that sorted out very shortly, and then the money starts flowing. Due to the election, they just didn't pass the budget. So that's, I'm hoping that's what the case is really. And hopefully we see some other action again on the Section 28s and stuff like that, as far as ministry gets a budget and they get a mandate on what they got to accomplish. But
yeah, we'll hope that things get back on track soon with the regular business. So, okay, with that, I will call for the vote then. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
And I think Tony's had to leave now. Tony?
Yes.
Okay. And Sandy?
Yes.
Margaret Lupton?
Yes.
And Hugh is gone. I hope everything's okay there. Paul Mitchell?
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray?
Yes.
Brian Petrie?
yes.
Joe Salter?
Yes.
Alex Westman?
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. So yeah, just want to briefly mention here, we've, as you've been hearing here in the chat and some lines here, Hugh's got a bit of an emergency. Unfortunately, there's been a plane crash on his property. And Tony is also having, he was talking to a doctor and he's now had to go. He has some family member with some health issues, so he's got a bit of an emergency on his hands. So we are down a couple more board members. We'll try to keep things moving. I know Alex has to leave early, and I think someone else was mentioning they had to leave early. So we'll continue to work our way through the agenda. It shouldn't be a lengthy meeting, so we'll keep moving, and hope everyone can hang in there for a bit. Next item we have is 6.3, and that is the review of the mileage rates. And pretty standard report there. If I could get, oh, Mark's not here. If I could get Sandy to move that, please, and Alex to second it.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay. So as I said, pretty straightforward. This will bring us up to date, and it also keeps us in line with other organizations and in compliance with the Canadian Revenue Agency. Tracy, anything you want to add?
No, I just, one of these things that we realized, well, we're way behind on this too. So we don't anticipate there'll be major budget implications. We certainly hadn't forecasted a lot of travel given COVID restrictions and just things opening up now. And it's not something that we have huge impacts on budget typically anyway. Certainly during the height of the pandemic, when we were keeping staff separate on field visits and things like that, that was more of a cost at that time. But certainly we're back to our regular at the moment. So.
Okay. Comments or questions? Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. So the one thing I want to touch on, I'm all for this CRA, just whatever yearly it is, and if that's the policy, just it keeps it in line. The other issue that I did notice is the word per diem in there, and I know our municipality has gone away from a per diem system, and they've used they use CRA has their list of allowances for breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and then anything else is from an expense stab. You submit receipts for anything else that's expense, and the reason behind that is that because, again, CRA has its rules, and per diems don't usually align with that, because again, it's not supposed, per diems are not supposed to be added on money on top of, if it's $150, it's not supposed to be a wage. It's supposed to replace the extra costs on top of what you would normally spend. That's the CRA's way of looking at it. So I don't know what the actual per diem rate is for Upper Thames. But again, we went away with that because of the conflict with CRA and how it evaluates things. Most businesses will not allow that because they're for per diems.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, when we the second paragraph there is that we'll review that. So when that time comes, yeah, we'll have to look at paying a per diem, which, as I understand it, is taxable, as opposed to a reimbursement of actual expenses. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, and staff can look into it when we do that review. Okay. Other comments, questions? Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Brian, thank you for those comments. I was kind of curious about the per diem rate as well. Just a quick question about when was the last time it was reviewed? And it is suggested that we will be reviewing this annually in preparation for the budget. So just want to have a better understanding when it will be reviewed and sort of what time of the year and when was the last time it was reviewed. Thank you.
Okay, Tracy?
Yeah, we were, thank you, through the chair, we were digging and trying to look that up. It was early 2000s, we believe, for the mileage that it was last updated. Typically, when we had reviewed mileage and per diem rates, that was done more recently, or at least the per diem rates, mileage, those were typically done together. And the last review was in 2018. And at that time, no change was suggested. So that's kind of where Michelle and I were going from, but we were having a hard time putting our fingers on those direct reports. But we do know that there was some discussion fairly recently about looking at and should the rates be updated but it was determined that it wasn't required at that time. Certainly knowing for future the timing of potentially even an agricultural appointment to our board. There's been 5 CAs that have been appointed agricultural representatives, and with them they follow the ministry's guidance for per diems for meetings in mileage. So again, we're going to have to be looking at that regulation a little bit more closely as well, and thought the timing for that will be in the new year or at a time when an agricultural representative is appointed.
Thank you for the update. Supportive of the recommendation, and glad to know that we'll be doing this on an annual basis as well.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. Did you have another comment, Brian, or is that?
I did. I just wanted to, if I could, Mr. Chair, touch on the honorarium. I'm glad that's being reviewed. I know in the past it had to go for the OMB to be approved way back, and so I'm glad to see that's changed. I was at the AMO conference, and one of the issues that came up across the board was compensation of council and why people aren't running for council, and it made me think of this one as well, because we have a lot of great citizens sitting on here, and they're doing it basically for free, and so it's hard to attract people who aren't who may not be able to give up a day's of work or something like that to be able to sit on the board and participate. So I'm for that, looking at something that's reasonable to make sure people are compensated fairly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll have to make sure that's included as part of that review.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so don't see anything else. So with that, I am going to call for the vote, and Michelle, Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Okay, Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Ellen Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
and Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Next, we have item number 7. This is reports for information. And 7.1 is the Section 28 status report. And if I could get Marie to move that and Anna to second it, please.
So moved.
And I second.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Jenna and staff here to answer any questions. Anyone have any questions or comments at all on Section 28? Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not looking for a long answer because I know we're close to losing quorum. But in addition to the Section 28 work, we've got other Planning Act matters that we deal with for municipalities, and we don't get a report on that. I'm certainly not asking to give more work to staff to get reports like that, but I want to get a sense of how we're doing on those matters, because the province has shortened the cycle for Planning Act matters, and that's putting pressure on staff of municipalities and pressure on our staff. And I know part of that is we weren't fully staffed for some time, but I'm wondering about going forward. Are we looking at new processes? Are we trying different ways of meeting the new deadlines?
Okay, thank you. Tracy, do you want to answer that?
Sure, I can start and then I'll pass it over to Jenna. And exactly what Sandy alluded to regarding our streamlining initiatives for Section 28. The high growth CAs are working on a annual reporting and planning service delivery template right now that was just circulated within this past week. So again, it's taking that next step. Yes, CAs are reporting back on our Section 28 numbers, but then also how we can incorporate these timelines into our service delivery with our MOUs for planning services. And then second to that, how we can report back to our board members and municipalities on meeting those broader timelines. Then I'll pass it over to Jenna, because I'm sure the added capacity and some of the more details and work with the City of London she can elaborate on.
Director. Thanks, through you, Chair. We have been really trying to change the structure and add some capacity into the planning and regulations unit. So I'll speak to our planning staff. Historically, we've had land use planners, a land use planner position, and those planners cover a geographic portion of the watershed. And we've tried to sort of beef up our staff, increase capacity, and create some more overlap and a bit more structure in our planning unit. So we've created a planning coordinator position. So our land use planner, Stephanie Pratt, has taken that position. She's now supervising our planning staff. And we've created a planner 1 and a planner 2 position. So it's sort of a junior and senior planner role. And we have one planner 1 and a planner 2 covering the City of London now, and a planner 1 and a planner 2 that's covering the rest of the watershed. So we are trying to have some overlap in terms of coverage, so that if someone's away or we lose a staff member, we aren't left kind of scrambling to pick up the pieces. So I'm really pleased with where we've gone in terms of structure with our planning staff, and we were falling behind in terms of commenting deadlines and just the real increase in volume of applications that we've been seeing. It's been hard to keep up, but with the new staff that we've added kind of over the spring and summer and our new structure, we are starting to catch up, and I'm quite confident that that moving forward we'll be able to meet the commenting deadlines. And likewise with our regulations staff, we've added some capacity on that side as well. And we've created a regulations officer, which we've always traditionally had in a regulations assistant position that supports our regulations officers. So like our planning staff, we have 2 regulations officers that are assigned to the City of London and 2 that are assigned to the rest of the watershed. We currently only have 1 regulations assistant who's supporting our regulations officer. Next, we're looking to try and add some additional capacity for our technical review staff. So where applications come in that require additional technical review, we have engineering, ecology, and hydrogeology support. So you may have heard that our hydrogeologist, Linda Nix, retired last summer. We have replaced her position finally. We were contracting that work out for some time, but we do have a replacement staff. Her name is Negmeh Sharifi. And we're in the process of hiring a planning ecologist to support our ecology reviews. And next we'll be moving forward with a junior engineer position to support our engineering reviews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, thanks, Jenna, and thank you for the question, Sandy. Any other comments or questions at all from board members? I'm not seeing any, but yeah, quite a few items listed there, and staff are certainly busy with lots of applications. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll call for the vote then. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Okay. Sorry. I just was taking actual notes. Okay, Marie Blanche?
Yes.
Alan Dale?
Yes.
Anna Hopkins?
Yes.
Sandy Levin?
Yes.
Margaret Lupton?
Yes.
Paul Mitchell?
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray?
Yes.
Brian Petrie?
Yes.
Joe Salter?
Yes.
And Alex Westman?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you. Next item we have is 7.2, and this is the Celebrating Natural Connections project. This is a report to receive for information. If I could get Joe to move that, please, and Sandy to second it.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. This is a great opportunity. We've got some funding from the federal government, and as you can see, we've planned a bunch of events for the public and opportunity for board members as well to get out and to participate in some of these ceremonies and then enjoy the outdoors. So I think we've got Teresa and Tracy here to answer questions. Paul, you're first. Go ahead.
What's the dollar figure? How much funding we're receiving to run this?
We received over $230,000. And when the funding was first announced, it was actually first announced before year end last year. And then when there was kind of a rebound in the COVID cases, that kind of pulled it back a little bit. I think thought it was a little bit too early to be celebrating. So we didn't actually apply until in January. And so we didn't hear about the actual funding until late June, and with some, agreements in July.
Thank you. That's a significant amount of dollars. So, and great to have some of these events being planned.
We are really excited to be able to involve as many, municipal partners and our local groups in, trying to really thank those frontline workers. So, and thanks, I think Brian is on deck for this weekend, along with Deputy Mayor Lauder, who's going to bring some greetings for us at the event at Burgess Park.
Yeah, there's quite a number of events, and the first one's this Saturday. So it's great. They're spread out over the autumn season, and there's even a couple planned maybe in the winter time, and a couple of the events will be virtual as well. So it's lots of options for folks. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, this is awesome. One is collaboration between levels of government and our organization, but it also, we saw that big uptick with COVID at the beginning of everybody getting out there and enjoying our facilities. So it's important that people are reminded that they're still there, and it's still something amazing that can happen, even if you can go other places. There's lots to offer in all the projects that's happening. So happy that they're doing this. And again, it reaches the goals of the strategic plan as well, of getting more people out there. So very good. And just another reason to celebrate our conservation authorities.
Yep, true enough. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blanche.
Yes.
Ellen Dale.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Margaret Lupton.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
Anna Marie?
Sorry, yes.
No worries. Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Yes.
And Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you. Next item we have is 7.3, and this is the announcement of the new General Manager for Conservation Ontario. Just an item for information. And if I could get Margaret to move this, please. And let's see if I can get Anna Marie to second it.
So moved.
So seconded.
All right, thank you. So just a little update there for the board members. I was involved in the hiring committee for this, and lots of candidates applied and some really qualified people. We were fortunate enough to hire Angela, and you can read a little bit there about her and her role up at South Nation Conservation Authority. I had to do a bit of a double take there because I'm not used to seeing Angela with her hair down like that. Usually she has it done up. So, but certainly she has lots of experience. And I think there's, like a lot of organizations, a provincial-wide organization, they're trying to represent. I know Tony just earlier made a comment about CAs being the same, and in many aspects, they are not the same. I can tell you, we've got large ones, we've got very small ones, we've got Toronto and Region, which is a massive organization, and we've got a number of smaller CAs that have less capacity, and they have regional issues. So we have a new general manager here who is from a mid-sized CA, and certainly is aware of some of the challenges facing these smaller CAs. And she's going to have a tough job trying to unite the the CAs from Eastern Ontario and the ones down in the Southwest, and also the ones in the GTA, because more very significant range in those CAs. But I'm sure she'll do a great job, and we're looking forward to a new era with a new general manager. Any comments or questions at all on this? I don't see or hear anything, so it's a report to receive for information. And with that, I'll call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
and Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Next we have is item 7.4, and that is the for your information report. Lots of good stuff in there. We've got, again, mentioning of the tree planting program and these upcoming events to be held at the parks and to celebrate natural connections. And a great photo there on the front page, as Scott would say, it's those turtles, and they're doing the little shimmy as they get in there and they bury themselves in the sand, so they hide. So that's just a great photo. If I could get Brian to move this, please, and Paul to second it.
So moved.
And seconded.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on the FYI report? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so with that, I'll call for the vote to receive this for information.
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. In my haste there, I forgot to mention an item under the tree planting. We did receive a email from a councillor, Sean Lewis, in the City of London, and this was a thank you email to Sandy, and congratulating us. Well done on the rural property tree planting. Trees are just as important there to increase the account as those in the urban setting. So a note of thanks then from Sean Lewis, who's the councillor in Ward 2 in the City of London. So that's just great to hear some feedback. Next item we have is number 8, notices of motion. Anyone have any notices of motion for our next meeting? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so that takes us to item number 9, which is chair's comments. I'll try to be brief, but there's a few items I'd like to mention here. First of all, I'd again like to extend condolences on behalf of the board and the staff. Our condolences to Alex Westman. It's certainly been a difficult time, and you know, that was evident at the memorial service that was held for Donna. Alex and Donna, you know, they shared a real love story, and certainly, Alex, you've been through a lot, and we appreciate you joining us today, and our thoughts are with you. Also, I'd like to extend good luck to those of you who are standing for election in the upcoming municipal election in October. I see a number of folks are up for election, and congratulations to those who have been acclaimed. There's a few acclamations. So it's certainly the time of this board is coming to an end in the new year, and there'll be some changeover in the board, but wish everyone the best who's standing for election. I also mentioned briefly before about the Reptiles at Risk event that was held last Thursday. We had a great turnout for that lab tour at the Watershed Conservation Center, and I know a number of board members wanted to be there, but were unable to attend for some last minute issues. But Paul and I were both there, and a number of staff. Of course, it was a really a great event, and good to see folks out. I know a number of the donors and supporters really appreciated it. So big thank you to Scott Gillingwater and all the staff involved. There's so many staff involved in so many other areas that all help contribute to that program. So it's really appreciated. We did mention already about in-person meetings. I know that is something that we're looking to do as soon as we can. I know folks are anxious to get back on in-person meetings, but unfortunately, we're just not quite there until we get the rest of this equipment that's on back order. So hopefully we'll soon be able to have the hybrid meetings and be able to meet in person for those that wish. Also, you've heard today that Jenna mentioned some new positions and some people that have filled in. It was also in Christine's budget update that there are a number of, I think we were at 133 staff. There's about 7 vacancies overall. We are going through a process here of a number of retirements, and we've done some new hires, and we're putting the pieces together. And what we'd like to do is hopefully at the September meeting, give the board members a real update, because we have added some new people. We've changed some of the job descriptions a little bit, and it's been a real challenge. And Tracy and the managers have done a great job of putting this all together. So hopefully we're able to give everyone a really good overview of how the structure looks. And hopefully, as I say, we can do that at the September meeting. And with that, I think that's it for my comments. Item number 10 is members' comments. Do any of the members have anything they'd like to share? Brian, go ahead.
Perfect. I will take this. I have 2 things. One is the same day as the Burgess event, the town of Ingersoll is having their Kiwanis Harvest Market down in the park, which is over 100 vendors. It used to be our Harvest Fest. There's going to be lots of stuff to do. It's down by a creek, so that's how it ties in, Halls Creek. But if anybody's looking for something to do, there's always lots to do this time of year, but that will be a good one as well. The other thing I want to mention is I was representing the town of Ingersoll at AMO this past, I guess, last week. And so one of the first sessions that I took in was the changes in the Conservation Act. And the general manager of Halton gave a very, he should be a politician, how well he put together the process and where we've come and where we come from. He was very gracious, and he was the leader of the steer task force. I want to encourage everyone here. I brought this up to them, and so did other people. And I guess the Minister Bacchini has been hearing this throughout the conference, was about the requirements for councillors to be on the board. I did let them know that we'll be losing 6 members regardless of how elections go, and we're going to be losing important members that contribute to our board. And so his message was that the steering group recognized that, and somehow what they had recommended, when the lawyers got a hold of things to write it into regulations, it didn't really come out the other end that well. And so the minister is very open to exemptions. They're not changing it as of yet, but he is very open to exemptions to the rule. So if your council wishes to continue, especially London, and I'm speaking to you, to have those great people sit on the board as well, I strongly recommend that you get your exemptions in to the minister. And also our board. Alan does a great job as our chair and a representative. If the board feels that he should continue in that role, I think we should put an exemption in as well to see that as well. Because we should choose who the person leading us is, and it shouldn't be a piece of paper that says it has to switch back and forth on a certain time. The gentleman from Hamilton Conservation Authority stood up. everybody is from the city on there except 1%. There's one representative who has 1% of the budget. So in the current legislation, that would have to switch. They would either be vice chair or chair every time. And so there's a lot of situations where it doesn't work. And I think the minister, the more that people put exemptions and show it doesn't work, they're willing to change that legislation through amendment. So I think that's important that we have diverse representation. It's not just councillors. Obviously, City of London councillors are super busy. We'd love having Anna here, but for everybody to come every time would be challenging. And so we bring so much more to everybody else. So again, I'll leave it there. If you want to make sure you get those exemptions in because they will be heard. That's what I'm being told.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Appreciate the update, and thank you for your kind words. I'm going to worry about the election first, and I'll see about getting reappointed to the CA and what happens from there. But certainly we've, as you mentioned, we've got a great board, and we're very fortunate to have a number of people who are capable of being chair of this organization. So that's, it's been a pleasure for me to be chair, but unfortunately I think the province has gone a bit too far with restrictions, because as you mentioned, that prevents in a lot of cases citizen appointees, and it also restricts some good people from serving as chair. So thank you for the update there. Alex, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to, from my family to you, all of you, thank you. The support has been amazing. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Alex, and say we can appreciate it. It's been difficult for you for quite some time now, but this last several weeks is certainly incredibly difficult time. So take care of yourself. We appreciate you joining us today. Any other comments or questions, updates from board members? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So now we'll go to item number 11, which is general manager's comments. And Tracy, I will turn it over to you for some comments.
Okay, thank you, Alan, and through you. And thank you to Brian for your comments and your discussion at AMO. That's top of mind. We've been sending out letters to our municipalities informing the clerks and CAOs of the exception requests and the template document that is to be submitted to the ministers if municipalities are going to request those exemptions. So certainly about appointments to boards where we have citizen appointments already. So that's been a priority. As with London, we've certainly mentioned it to several of the staff from the clerk's department, so they're aware too, Anna, just for your information, that and our other City of London representatives. That's been on the go for some time because we've been having regular meetings with the City of London as we've gone through this transition process, and have mentioned that challenge at each circumstance because the Lower Thames actually has a representative who is not a councillor who was appointed after the new act was proclaimed. And so that's been challenging with the Lower Thames because that individual cannot vote in their meetings. So it's been a little bit higher priority for the city in that regard too. A few other things that I'd like to mention that are going on. Maternal is returning this year. It's a little bit different, reimagining conservation. And will be held at the Royal Botanical Gardens October 17th through the 18th. So it's a little bit different format as well, but the deadline is fast approaching. I know Michelle sent out an email previously, but if you are intending to participate, please let her know. That's something that she's going to want to arrange for accommodations and transportation. And I was going to elaborate a little bit more on the discussion topic that Alan did about kind of our organization modernization. You certainly heard some of the changes that planning and regulations have been making to better serve our municipalities and to align with the new requirements under the different acts, the Planning Act, the Conservation Authorities Act, our timelines. But there's other departments as well where we've made some changes. Again, looking forward to how our programs and services will be adapting as we comply with the new requirements, balancing those mandatory and non-mandatory components, kind of shifting those program areas around a little bit, and recognizing that we've had retirements. So what expertise will be needed as we move forward to continue our programs and services. So with that, hope to provide a board report, show that structure, and as we continue to hire and get those replacements for staff leaving, but also staff, again, as Jenna had mentioned, where some additional capacity is needed, maybe a little bit different expertise than we've had in the past. And finally, I just wanted to give you an update on some of the requirements of the Act as well to complete studies, whether it be our broader land management strategies, our inventories, and then our core watershed-based resource management plan, and even some of our structures and how we look at those structures over time and our management of those structures. Conservation Ontario has been great for putting together sessions for those staff involved as a forum to discuss different approaches, different information that CAs have. Recognizing, again, as Alan said, we're all different. We all have different responsibilities. You know, we're one of the few CAs that have the size of structures that we have, you know, us and the grant and our management of those structures. So there's one example of where Chris Tasker will be presenting at a session for our CA counterparts of kind of the approaches that we're taking when looking at these plans that we're putting together. There's also some template documents out there. Again, advice and not hard and fast, this is what everyone should be doing, but giving some background and again, those approaches for how to compile information that you may already have for your land management strategies, how you can apply your strategic plan and other management and resource documents you have into watershed characterization into your watershed-based management strategy. So those are some of the things that Conservation Ontario has been working at. Again, trying to ensure that CAs, although we're different, that at least there's some consistencies in the documents that we're preparing as we move forward with the preparations of these plans. So just thought you should know that that's an ongoing task, and it's tapping a number of individuals either to participate in these sessions, or in the case of Chris Tasker, presenting information to other CAs too. So I'm sure we'll see more and hear more from us as we work towards preparing those plans. Those are just a few of the updates that I thought I'd provide right now. I think it's going to be a busy fall.
Yes, no doubt. Okay, thank you, Tracy. So with those comments, we'll now move on to item number 12, which is reports in camera. And motion here is that the Board of Directors adjourn to closed session in camera in accordance with Section C13 of the Upper Thames River Administrative Bylaw to discuss litigation affecting the authority. And if I could get Brian to move that, please, and Anna Marie to second it.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. And I'll call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. So we will now go into closed session, and we'll just give Emily a moment here to put some people in the waiting room and to stop the live stream, and then we can proceed with our in-camera report.
Yeah,
Jenna,
just before I do that, Hugh McDermott is back in the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, good, good.
Jenna will be staying in.
Do we have some more people to come in and join the meeting with us now, Emily?
No, there's no one in the waiting room, but we're back live now.
Okay, so we're back live. We're back in open session. That's great. Thank you. Just want to update the public that we just received a motion, or a report in closed session. It was just an update on some ongoing legal cases. So if I can get Alex to move it, and if I can get, let's say, who have I got here? Joe to second the motion that the Board of Directors receive the report for information.
Yes.
Okay, so Alex is going to move that. Joe, can you second that, please?
So seconded.
Perfect, thank you.
So moved.
So moved, okay, good, thank you, Alex. I was kind of,
Multitasking.
yes, I was kind of assuming that yes was for us, but thank you for clarifying that. So if there's no comments or questions then on that motion to receive it for information, I will call for the vote. And Teresa, if you could do the roll call, please.
Sure. Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Ellen Dale,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anne Marie Murray,
Sorry, yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Alex may have just had to leave.
Okay.
He was taking I know he had an engagement and the phone rang there too on him. So nonetheless, the motion is carried. So thank you very much, folks. So that concludes our meeting for today. Really appreciate everyone's attendance today. It seems like it's been a very harried kind of meeting here. We've unfortunately had a few last minute complications, and Hugh's back with us. So I hope, Hugh, everyone's all right that was involved in that accident outside your home.
No.
No, oh no.
Okay. Well, very unfortunate incident there this morning. And of course, we wish all the best to Alex and Tony as well, because I know Tony's got some, Tony is he may have shared with others that one of his parents is having some health issues. So he's been kept busy with that. So appreciate everyone's attendance today. Please enjoy the rest of your summer and stay safe. Look forward to seeing folks at some of these public events where we're going to celebrate natural connections, and look forward to seeing everyone at the September meeting. It will be a virtual meeting, but anticipate that we're going to have lots to discuss in September. So with that, a motion to adjourn, and if I could get Marie to adjourn the meeting, please.
Yes, I will so move.
Okay.